Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We offer stories of infidelity, betrayal, and redemption. Please like and subscribe. Cheers. Now, on to today's story. Was I tricked into granting my wife permission to sleep around? What now? Major apologies for length, but I feel all of this detail is necessary. Skeptical. I'm a 30-year-old male and have been married to my wife, age 29, for 8 years. We dated for a little over a year prior to that and were friends for about 3 years before that. We have a 17-month-old daughter that has me tourniquet wrapped around her little finger already. Let me preface all of this by saying that I really love my wife. I would characterize our relationship and marriage up until the last few weeks as epic. This is a hard story to tell. About 2 months ago I had an odd/surprising conversation with my wife. We were sitting on the couch after having gotten the little one to bed and eaten dinner, including a couple of glasses of wine mind you, when she brought up the subject of monogamy and having an open/semi-open relationship. This was a long and unexpected conversation, but the gist of it and concluding agreed upon points ended up being: we felt our love for each other was stronger than ever and ironclad. We felt our relationship had reached the point where it transcended traditional monogamy norms, that either person could potentially have sex with someone else and that it wouldn't impact the core foundation of our relationship or our love. We agreed that if circumstances ever arose where someone wanted to have the experience of having sex with someone else, it would be allowed as long as it did not interfere with time spent with each other, with our child, and did not take away emotional capacity for each other. If it was to ever happen, you had to be completely honest and safe about it, no sneaking around. We both have veto power at any time over a specific person, circumstance, or the whole idea altogether, or so I thought. Read on. Keep in mind that nothing like this has ever come up before in 8 years of marriage and 12+ years of knowing each other. At the time I remember feeling a little dumbfounded that I was actually having this conversation and amazed that these words were coming out of our mouths and that my wife had initiated the whole thing. I had several girlfriends before meeting my wife, but she was the first woman I ever had sex with. She, on the other hand, was sexually active at an early age and with multiple partners. At that moment, I couldn't help but feel like I had been handed a golden ticket. I was raised in a very Southern Baptist home and brainwashed with a ton of abstinence bullshit, proud escapee of the church matrix going on 10 years now, so I must admit that I had carried around a small bit of regret that I had missed out on my opportunity to play the field sexually in college and that I would never have that opportunity again. I had just been given a free pass to do something about that should I so choose without any consequence at all. I walked away from that conversation with a new respect for our marriage and how cool we both were. Flash forward to the next day, I wake up and shake off the cobwebs and have one of those WTF just happened moments. My stomach felt like it was made of lead. In my gut I felt like all of this was wrong and I needed to undo it, but I didn't want to speak up just yet. I remembered back to all the church camp programming of my youth and wondered if it was just doubt from that bubbling up to the surface. I decided to take a couple of days to process all this information and really think hard about it. We both lead very busy lives, so I figured I had some time to assimilate this before taking any action. Oops. About a week, less, after our conversation, my wife comes home from going out to get some work done at a coffee shop. She's acting very strange/nervous when she gets home and I start to feel very strange and nervous as a result. I ask her who was there with her and she tells me, it was a guy friend of a friend, Mr. X, that we both know and had met about 2 months prior. I was a little shocked to learn that she had acted on our agreement so quickly. Here is where our version of events diverges significantly. I say that at that point I made it clear that I was not as comfortable with this whole thing as I had thought I would be initially and that I wanted to take it all back. I asked if anything had already happened and she responded no, but that it probably was going that way and she was attracted to him and vice versa. I made it clear, I thought, that I didn't like this guy she went to see and didn't want her to see him again. She assured me that everything was okay and said repeatedly, "You don't have anything to worry about, anything between me and X," which I took to mean as confirmation that the whole idea was scrapped, or at the very least, she won't be hooking up with X that night. I mentally breathed a sigh of relief and felt like we had dodged a bullet. I had basically come to the conclusion independently of this event that our marriage was too important to me to take a risk on damaging it. I felt 99% certain that our marriage could continue to function without any significant disruption or guilt/anger/jealousy if one of us slept with someone else, but the potential damage of that 1% chance was too great a risk to take. In other words, our marriage was great, so why risk it? It would be great if that's where the story ended. I wish I could rewind to that night and say explicitly, "No, I am not okay with this arrangement." I was not thinking clearly when I agreed to that, and I am quite happy staying in a traditional monogamous relationship, but thanks for the offer. Last night I found out in a roundabout way that my wife's take on that last conversation was completely different from mine. She says that when she said "you don't have anything to worry about between me and X," what she meant was that it was going to continue, but would have no impact on her love for me or the continuing day-to-day of our marriage. She's been sleeping with him for at least a couple of weeks, since some time after the last talk on the subject. I could not bring myself to ask the particulars, so I don't know how many times exactly. Not sure I want to. Rewinding the whole series of events, I can't help but wonder if this is all an elaborate, masterful way of getting me to authorize an affair. After all, there was little opportunity for me to sleep with anyone else. All of my time was spent at my office or at home. My wife, on the other hand, has 3 days a week at home by herself working as a freelance copywriter. And the timing of the whole thing is more than suspect. She claims adamantly that this is not the case and that the speed at which she took advantage of our agreement was purely coincidental. Today I was a complete wreck and completely worthless at work. I feel betrayed and utterly hollow. I went home for a while and talked to my wife for a bit. I asked her what she would do if I said I wanted this all to end, go back to the way things were before all of this happened, and her not see X ever again. Her response, "Well, I guess I wouldn't really have a choice. I mean, I guess, but I wouldn't like it." I am really at a loss as to what to do now. I am having a hard time figuring out to what extent I have a right to be upset about this. Can I even consider this an affair/cheating? Is this just a miscommunication of epic proportions? Am I just being a stupid baby because she went first and I should just buck up and hold on to my golden ticket? Help. TLDR, wife and I agreed to an open relationship, she brought it up. I changed my mind and thought I made that clear, but her take was different. Now she is sleeping with some other guy and seems resistant to changing things. What now? Update 222, added new details and revelations from latest talk on comment below. Update 3/8, State of the Union update below. Thanks all for the comments so far. It's cathartic writing this out. Here are some updates and comments/clarifications. Seems to be pretty clear consensus that communication sucked on this. I don't disagree, and I greatly regret not using a high degree of specificity in our first conversation, and especially on the follow-up one when I really started to freak out. Honestly, I thought at the time that such specificity wasn't necessary, not because I didn't think clear rules of engagement in an open relationship are important, but because this whole thing came as such a surprise that it has really disarmed me in a lot of ways. I assumed, incorrectly and stupidly, that she must feel as weird and wrong about the whole thing as I did. Definitely learned my lesson on that. There will be no gray area or wishy-washiness on the topic going forward. I can say with 99.9% certainty that my wife was not screwing this guy prior to our initial discussion. She didn't even meet him until a month or two prior to that and had little chance to interact with him. She swears adamantly that nothing happened between them physically until after it was cleared. However, she did admit last night that she had thought about it, busted. I can also say with 99.99% certainty that my wife has never cheated on me with anyone from the start of our relationship up to this point. You're just going to have to take my word for it on that. Although I wonder now after our last talk how much of that stems from inopportunity and unfavorable logistics versus desire. We talked again last night. Here's the highlights, lowlights. She refuses to characterize this as cheating or any wrongdoing on her part and basically says that this is what we agreed on and I'm just freaking out because it was always going to be hard on whoever went second and that person was bound to have second thoughts. She apologized for the miscommunication on our second talk and said if she would have thought that what I meant was I wasn't okay with the whole thing she wouldn't have gone through with it. She claims she really thought I had okayed the whole thing. Me at one point, I don't want to share with you. Her, how is that your choice? You don't own me. I asked her to tell me if she required this kind of lifestyle to be happy going forward, was this something wanted/needed or if she was just feeling particularly experimental/horny lately and it snowballed out of control. I asked a lot of blunt questions on this topic and got a new version of the truth. She claims her desire for a more open relationship has been building for some time, perhaps years, but she just recently felt like I would be agreeable to the idea. She adamantly claims that this has nothing to do with inadequacy of me emotionally or sexually. Still adamantly claims that her love for me has not changed. Points to examples of her behavior the past month and how things have actually been better between us. Admits that this is likely a pattern of behavior for her. Says she doubts she can change it but was hoping she could find a safe outlet for it with me. When asked why all of this is just coming up now after 7 years of marriage, she stated that she had been growing steadily uneasy for the last few years but she kept blaming it on other things, stresses of life, stresses of having a baby, etc. Says that if it came down to a choice she would go back to strict monogamy. However, says she would not be happy and not sure if it is sustainable. Keeps saying that she thinks this is what I really want too, that I'm just scared, and that if I give it some time I'll calm down and come around. Points out that in our initial conversation I was agreeable and that if I was truly against the idea I would have said so from the start. Not sure how right she is but this is a hard one for me to argue against. Skeptical. I'm still confused as hell. On the one hand I do feel like my wife has manipulated this situation to her advantage and I feel played. On the other hand, if this really is what she wants and needs, should I not take some solace in the fact that she did attempt to get me on board? I now feel like I only have two choices. 1, I can try out this open relationship thing and see if I can really handle having multiple sexual partners but still maintain a normal family life at the end of the day. 2, preemptive lawyer strike without warning. From what she has said it doesn't sound like a return to the way things would work out. She claims I'm the most important thing in her life and said she would do it if that's what I wanted but then in the very next breath says she wouldn't be happy and that's not what she wants. I guess this is the classic someone must sacrifice scenario that married folks constantly face. I just never thought the sacrifice someone would have to make would be their overall happiness and the stakes would be the marriage itself. Life really sucks today. I've been putting off replying with an update because I really don't have anything positive to add and it's all just too depressing. Anyway, here goes. I will try to not make it a novella this time but no guarantees. We are still together and I haven't taken any steps toward divorce other than implying that I'm running out of options and that's my final one. I have had a few more discussions with my wife since my last update. Every time we talk there is a new version of the truth, new revelations about her motivation to do this, when her desire to be with other people began, etc. The latest version is she's always been this way but was able to keep it under wraps and ignore it for most of our marriage but the last 1 to 2 years she has felt trapped and not alive. The notion of this pisses me the duck off, more on that later, and so that plus the general stresses of life was the catalyst that led to the current state of things. Some other factoids and realizations on my part. It appears that she really did think that I had cleared her going forward with her relationship. She seems most concerned with that more than anything, dispelling the notion that this was born out of decompletion. It's either she really did think I okayed the whole thing, or she is so ducked up mentally that she has convinced herself that this is the truth. Still emphasizes that nothing has changed between us from her perspective, and that she still loves me and wants to be with me, mainly me, primary me to use a poly term, indefinitely. Keeps saying, paraphrasing, if you would try it you would see it's no big deal and you would know there is nothing to worry about. Recognizes that she realizes that this is hurting me but keeps on anyway. Basically I guess she thinks I'll get over it. Almost 2 weeks ago now, after my last update, I put to paper everything I had been feeling and everything I wanted so that there could be no misunderstanding or misinterpretation of my feelings and intent. I ended by stating that I wanted just 3 things to happen. 1, our open/poly/whatever the duck this ends. 2, we enter into marriage counseling ASAP. 3, all contact with ex ends. I left the letter downstairs and left the house for a while because I didn't want to be there when she read it. When I got back there was about a 30-minute silence with her just sitting there. We finally started talking and long story short she agreed that she couldn't discount the possibility that she was having an early midlife crisis, but she needed time to think. I said okay to that. My parents were coming into town the next day for a 4-day visit, great timing, so for the next 4 days I had to put on my happy face and pretend everything was hunky-dory. After my parents went back home we rediscussed everything and long story short, this is the conversation where I learned that she really didn't think that I didn't know what was going on and thought that I was okay with it. Again, if this is not the truth, she really believes it is. She revealed that she had broken it off with X the day after receiving the letter. This was a pivotal exchange for me because I realized she really didn't think or wasn't able to accept that she had done anything fundamentally wrong. She wasn't going to change. If she did it would only be out of fear of losing her daughter or the safety and love of our family. She would resent me for it at least. She really does believe that this isn't as big a deal as I make it out to be, and that if I would go along with it I'd agree after trying it myself. There were a few moments where I was half a breath away from saying duck you, we're done, but in the end I ended up basically saying okay to the whole thing again. Serious lack of balls you say? Maybe, but that's not what I was feeling at the time. Here's the thing that makes this all suck so bad. I love my daughter to death and I love my life with my family, when my wife is not out ducking some hipster D-bag. I don't want that to end. Less for me and more for my daughter. I can honestly say that if my daughter did not exist I would now probably be posting about how my divorce filings were going and how I was going to try and get the majority of our assets due to the circumstances. But I don't want my daughter to grow up having to split time between 2 parents and wondering why she doesn't live with a normal family. I did not grow up like that, my wife did, which is another thing that pisses me off. Her parents had a nasty divorce and it scared her. You would think she would be less apt to destroy our marriage. My folks are still married and have been for nearly 40 years now. I want that for my children, even if it's a huge sacrifice on my part. The really sick thing is I wonder if my wife doesn't realize this and is using that fact against me. She knows that I'm the kind of person who is quick to forgive, slow to place blame, and generally tries to make everyone around me feel better. Is she using that against me either consciously or unconsciously? Maybe. But what can I do? I kind of feel like JFK would have felt if the Soviets had suddenly landed an invasion force on the eastern seaboard. The Joint Chiefs would have immediately screamed for an all-out nuclear strike, but that would have meant ending everything. Is it worth winning and protecting yourself in principle at the cost of everything? These are the questions I have been wrestling with. I started all of this by saying that I love my wife. That is still true. For the last 8 years she has been my best friend. You would probably think from reading all of this that there must have been something fundamentally wrong with our relationship, but I honestly can't pinpoint anything. We had the normal stresses of life and having a child, but nothing earth-shattering. We live a comfortable life, not rich but definitely not poor. We always made time for each other and shared many interests and activities. Sex was great, her words, not just mine. My wife works a flexible job from home and has always had the freedom to pursue any interest, hobby, or friendship, non-sexual up until now, that she wanted. We waited for 6 years before trying for kids, and only when we both decided it was okay. Really, I wanted kids more than she did though. Maybe this has something to do with things. I suppose that the suddenness of all of this is one of the things that has made me slow to act and resistant to labeling her a cheating heartless whore and just moving on. It just doesn't add up to me. Why would someone who has it all risk everything like this? The only answers I can come up with is either she really does want this and this really is what would make her happy, or she is really messed up mentally and needs help. I am not sure what to do with either of those scenarios. It doesn't help that from her perspective it may seem like I'm flip-flopping on the whole thing and can't make up my mind what I want. Thus far I've agreed in principle to the idea of a semi-open relationship and gone back on it twice. My agreement is always reluctant though, and only when it comes down to a choice between surrender or divorce. The ramifications of pulling the trigger on divorce after 8 years is a lot to bear. It would be easier if it was only the two of us that had to deal with the fallout. I'm still bouncing between numbness, anger, depression, and occasional life is okay. Mostly numbness lately. I have had some really low moments the past couple weeks. Sleep is not going well. I don't have much of an outlet for any of this, only one friend I feel comfortable sharing all of this with, so I appreciate you Redditors for taking the time to read and comment, even if it's just a joke or to tell me to STFU and delete the gym. TLDR, shit is still ducked up. I am slow to act because while the current situation sucks, I think getting divorced would suck more. Update, marriage meltdown continued. I'm on the absolute brink. Time to throw in the towel. This is a continuation and update of the saga I started here. Getting all of this out has helped my sanity, so thanks again for the comments and suggestions. It's been well over a month since I posted the last update. Here is what has transpired since. Wall of text follows. If you can make it through, there will be cake. Also, in case you missed and don't want to bother reading the subsequent thread, I am 30, wife is 29, and we have been married 8 years. Shortly after posting my last update, I finally gave an ultimatum of sorts to my wife. I told her plainly that things could not continue on this way, and that if she didn't stop seeing her boyfriend and enter into some marriage therapy immediately, then it was over. She agreed. She seemed to have a very meh attitude about the whole thing. When asked, she would say that she wanted to work out our differences and fix our relationship, but only if I directly asked the question, and even then she seemed to be annoyed more than anything. Her attitude towards me in our day-to-day interactions became extremely cold from that point on. Basically all signs of affection ceased. Conversation other than directly initiated and sustained by me ceased. Things as simple as a reassuring touch on the arm or a peck on the cheek as I leave for work ended. She would reciprocate if I hugged her, but there was a tenseness and general sense of unease about it all. She seems to wear an aura of I'm here because I have to be. We've done 7 weeks of therapy, 5 together and 2 sessions separate. The therapy itself has been a mixed bag. Mostly the sessions revolved around how did we get here, what broke down in our relationship and how to fix that and make it not happen again. Of course, most of this appears to be my fault, at least according to my wife. In my couple of previous posts I talked about how her story of why this was happening and what her real intentions/wants were kept changing. In therapy it became completely about my failings in our marriage. Her spin on things was that she had been unhappy for some time because I'm constantly depressed or in a bad mood because I'm stuck in a job situation I hate. Some background there, I have been working corporate 9-to-5 type jobs since I graduated college in 2003, software related. They are definitely not my passion in life, and I've been seeking a way out of the corporate rat trap for some time. It's true this has made me really unhappy at times in the past, but not constantly depressed and or irritable. It was an occasional state of mind that could last for a few days, max was a few months in my previous job, which I came to truly loathe for a variety of reasons. She would get really defensive and hostile when I pointed out in therapy that my job provides us the stability to live comfortably and provide for our family. She works freelance for much less money, unpredictable income stream, and no benefits. She also claimed that I spent too much time on other hobbies and that we grew apart. I took major issue with this. I was always pretty careful about time that I spent alone or with other friends, and there was rarely a week that went by that the majority of my non-work time was spent away from home and or not with my wife. The ratio had definitely changed over the last couple of years. I picked up some hobbies that she was not interested in, but overall I felt like we had sustained a high level of interaction beyond incidental day-to-day contact. We spent time together at home, went out together, went on dates, everything you would expect from a healthy relationship. There were times, if I was depressed especially, where I would withdraw and mostly want to be by myself. That's just how I am, I guess. In everything she pointed out, being depressed about my job, spending less time with her, being emotionally withdrawn or unavailable, there was always an element of truth to it, and this made it difficult to argue. The best lies are the ones that are part true, I guess. Some of what she said was true partially, or had been true at one time, but it was always exaggerated and blown way out of proportion. Nothing she came up with could explain the breakdown of the last 6 months. However, when I tried to refute or contradict anything she said or steer the conversation/therapy in the direction of let's talk about why you gave up on our marriage, became deceitful, and are now in denial that you did anything wrong or have anything to fix, she would become nearly irate. She did not want to hear it and has not owned up to anything really. See? This is what you do. You just argue with me. Is what I got. At the beginning of the first session, the first thing the therapist wanted to know was what the status of her relationship with Mr. X was. Her verbatim reply, "Well, that's definitely on hold." Notice it was not "it's over," it was "it's on hold." She is a clever wordsmith and she definitely chose those words intentionally. I did not point it out or pursue it at the time, just logged it away in the back of my mind. More on that later. It became clear by the end of the third session that the only way I was going to make any headway was focusing mostly on what went wrong aspect and how I had failed. We talked a lot about my being stuck in a career rut and what I could do to fix that or have a more positive outlook about that. We talked a lot about communicating better, making time to air grievances and not letting emotions simmer. We talked about communicating things clearly and not sugarcoating or being passive-aggressive. All good things. I was hoping that if I would take on more of the responsibility for all of this, that she would warm up to the idea of reconciliation and eventually she would herself voluntarily admit that she was, at least, as much at fault as I and had things that she needed to change. Hey, maybe I'd even get a heartfelt apology. One can dream. But things at home were not getting any better. They were not getting worse, per se, but she was cold and robotic in everything. There was no conversation initiated by her other than what was absolutely required, and if I tried to talk about things she became very irritable very quickly. I would ask you, do you want things to get better, right? I wouldn't get a yes response. Not a no response either, but a non-committal politician's answer. Well, I'm going to therapy with you, right? And sometimes just an I don't know how I feel, I just need some time to go through the motions. Okay, I can handle that. This has been a traumatic ride, so that makes sense, I guess. Maybe I'm rushing things and expecting too much too quickly? Rewind to the first therapy session, it's definitely on hold. Mentally picture a rage comic that zooms in on hold. Yeah. So about 3 weeks into therapy, I couldn't stand being paranoid about this anymore. I had noticed that she had begun keeping a vice-like death grip on her phone. It never left her side, and this was not like her. Also, I bumped into her notebook one day, stirring it to life, and I notice it's now password protected. Gee, I wonder if there is something going on here? After what's happened so far, I didn't trust her to tell me the truth if asked directly, so I did what any good geek given no other choice would do. I got into her email via the server. She forgot that her domain and attached email was set up and is maintained by me. Whoops. Lo and behold, she's still talking to Mr. X and has been all this time on a near daily basis. There was no smoking gun in there. Hey, let's meet up and have sex. Your husband is Taydums LOL. But the general tone of the emails was more than just exchanging links to funny cat videos. I love yous exchanged and evidence that she is talking to X about how things are going as far as our marriage goes. Cue overwhelming rage and sadness. The shittiest part was I couldn't come right out and confront her about it. Although I feel it was justified, I did get into her personal email without her knowledge and I would rather have her incriminate herself. I managed to work it into conversation a week later, so I noticed that you've been really protective of your phone. Also, it's been bugging me that you said it's on hold with regards to Mr. X in therapy. Are you still talking to him? After some stammering, she replied that he was still in contact with her, but it was just him sending her random links to random news articles. She said she was guarding her phone because she was worried I'd see a text message from him pop up and think the wrong thing. I knew that this was, at best, an extreme exaggeration of the truth, but I did not let on. I brought this up towards the end of our next therapy session. The therapist seemed mildly surprised. My wife's response when I started to bring it up was to roll her eyes. Oh, here we go. We didn't get much past that because we ran out of time. Outside of the therapist's office, it was back to her cold robotic nature. She did not bring it up, and when I tried, she got defensive and angry. That's all this is about to you, isn't it? I dropped it. I've continued to monitor her email and still haven't found anything incriminating to indicate that she's having a physical relationship with this person, but it's obviously possible. I cannot see her sent messages, and I know a lot of this is going on by text or FB, which I don't have access to, so I'm only seeing a partial picture of what's going on when I'm away. It's also possible, I guess, that she thinks it okay to continue a platonic relationship with this person, and she sees exchanging of "hey, what's up, how have you been, blah blah" emails as innocuous. This could just be me going out of my way to make excuses for her. Something I seem to have a habit of doing. So there you have it. My wife still has a relationship with the D-bag, even though she knows I'm not cool with that. It may be platonic in nature, but I really don't know. She doesn't seem to be very interested in patching things up or making things better. When backed into a corner, she will claim she does, but only if asked directly, and even then it's often a vague answer. The only happiness she ever shows is when we're playing together with our daughter. I feel like I have done everything I could do. I still cling to threads of hope, but maybe it's time to let go? Is there any hope at all of saving this at this point? She still says "I love you," but only in response when I say it, and my own "I love yous" are sounding more and more hollow. Has anyone here ever been in a relationship this far gone with someone who clearly is not in love with you anymore and is actively deceiving/hurting you, and been able to save it? Thank you, Reddit, for reading. You made it. As promised, cake. TLDR, wife agreed to therapy, but it does not appear to be helping. She is cold and dismissive of me. Found out 3 weeks into therapy via computer skills 0 RZ that she is still in daily communication with Mr. X. Give up, lawyer up. WTF update 427, well, I guess I don't need to fret over what to do anymore. Just found out that she is/has been still sleeping with the raptard. Really sad actually. Email from her mom telling her that she needs to stop sleeping with X and worrying that she's going to get an STD, he sleeps around apparently, pass it to me, and then lose her daughter. Guess I also have to go get tested now and accelerate legal stuff. Life sucks. Frown. I guess I made a really bad choice 8 years ago. Either that or an alien parasite is inhabiting and controlling my wife's body. I wish the latter could be true, as I could probably figure out a solution to that, but I can't travel back in time. I agree with this, sadly. It's never the easy thing to hear or do. But in my humble opinion, I think you need to get divorced and move on. You deserve better. You don't want to live like you are now. It seems like she is more of a roommate than a wife. Don't think of it as giving up, because you are not the one who let the relationship fail. It's her fault from what I hear you saying, and you need to keep your self-confidence. The next few years will probably be hell. But someday you'll find someone who appreciates you for who you are. Keep fighting, buddy. It doesn't sound like your therapist is doing a good job of forcing each of you to take responsibility for your respective roles and actions that are contributing to the demise of your relationship. I'm disappointed in the therapy and how little it seems to have helped. As expected would be the case, my wife was not volunteering any self-critical observation or admission of shortcomings. I was not really in a position to point them out, since when I do, the response is hostile and gets somehow twisted into proof of my failures. In result, I was really needing the therapist to read between the lines and confront when appropriate. Mostly all he offered up were variations on "how does that make you feel?" and there was a lot of awkward silence. Eventually I would get sick of the three of us staring at each other, and in order to move the session forward and get us talking about something, I would open some topic having to do with how/why our marriage might have become dysfunctional in the last couple of years, even though I felt that our marriage hadn't become dysfunctional at all. In result, we ended up spending 80% plus of each session talking about things like communication issues, my dissatisfaction over my career, etc. Almost nothing about the affair or my wife's role in all of this. In fact, in 7 one-hour sessions, I think a whopping 10 minutes was devoted to it. It's not like I was expecting the therapist to play judge and assign blame to each of us, and I'm the first to admit that some blame belongs to me. But virtually everything I've read about infidelity in marriage says that it's the norm for the cheater to reimagine the status of their relationship leading up to the affair as insufferable so that they're freed from guilt and blame. It would have only taken a few direct questions from the therapist to see that was going on in a major way. It sounds like another terrible therapist, as per the usual. She isn't trying to bridge the distance, she's sitting on the other bank, watching you work. The episodes of cheating that work out well are ones where both parties want to fix the relationship. She hasn't accepted responsibility for her part. She hasn't come to a conscious conclusion because you are her security blanket. But she's come to an emotional one. You know what needs to happen here. Life will not look the same to her after it does. She will blame you. I'm sorry. Internet hugs. I missed your post the first time around and just read it all, including the updates. I have no advice, just wanted to say that I'm thinking of you and your daughter and wishing you happiness. Sorry to hear this, mate. I've been following your stories since the original post and was hoping things would work out better for you. She has checked out of the marriage and all the work you are doing is not helping. Time to try a different tack. First, I'm sorry for you. Second, I suggest you get an attorney to explore your options. Third, am I the only one who thought the cake link would be a NSFW link of the wife, anonymized of course? Sorry bud, it doesn't look good. Time to move on and be with someone who wants you and only you. Really sorry to hear you're sorry, my friend, which I missed the first time round. Staying with someone who is cold to you is just going to make you unhappy. Time to move on. If I am going to give practical advice, it is to lawyer up before you say a thing to her. Quoted text: if it was to ever happen, you had to be completely honest and safe about it, no sneaking around. We both have veto power at any time over a specific person, circumstance, or the whole idea altogether, or so I thought. Read on. I read what you wrote from the beginning. It is obvious you have communication problems. Thing is, if she was planning to sleep with Mr. X, she should have mentioned that to you to get final approval, otherwise this whole veto power would not work. Personally, I believe her motives on that night were more specifically based on Mr. X. Once you agreed on open relationship and conditions, she should have told you about Mr. X. She may deny she knew of Mr. X, but follow your gut instinct on this one. She knows without doubt that you are not happy with an open relationship. You know without doubt that she wants an open relationship. Quoted, we agreed that if circumstances ever arose where someone wanted to have the experience of having sex with someone else, it would be allowed as long as it did not interfere with time spent with each other, with our child, and did not take away emotional capacity for each other. Well, it seems that it also has taken an emotional toll on both of you. She has become a different person, less affectionate, more secretive, and you trust her less. I too have been reading from the start. It sounds pretty clear something was already going on with Mr. X. The fact that she so quickly jumped into bed with him, looking back, reveals that. The fact that she won't give him up now, shows that this wasn't a buddy, this is a guy she's having an affair with. Her actions seem to indicate that this girl doesn't give a shit about you. You need to GTFO, because the sooner you do, the sooner you can start a better chapter of your life. Give up, lawyer up. Yes. You've got pretty close to a smoking gun. You have a good chance to keep a lot of your money and keep a good portion of child custody. She's telling another guy she loves him even when she says she's trying to save the marriage. You have a right to that email server traffic. I'd start logging the shit out of it and forwarding it to another account for safekeeping. Get out, and duck the bitch up as much as you need to ensure that things come out in your favor. You are incontrovertibly in the right. Do not allow yourself any guilt or any self-doubt. You know she's manipulating you and playing with your mind. Any doubt that arises from anything she tells you must be ignored. The only thing you can do is follow your own best judgment and not be swayed. You will not make perfect decisions, but nobody does. And one final note, if your wife tells anyone anything, that person can testify in court. I know this is true in Florida, I think it's true everywhere. The same goes for you. If you can get her to tell people that she's jerking you around, is intentionally ducking him behind your back, etc., you have an ace in the hole. I don't know how old your daughter is, but when she finds out your wife is cheating on you, she might get angry and have a conversation with her mother. Putting your daughter on the stand may be shitty, but your wife may do it, and be prepared to have her cross-examined effectively. Let's go back to the start and rewrite it knowing what you do now. She was already in some sort of relationship with the OM. Certainly emotional, very likely physical. She talked you into an open marriage so she could be with OM in a full affair. Not playtime, just sex or no harm to the marriage. Nope, this is a full-blown emotional / physical / I love you affair. You called her on it thinking that she had been honest, it was just sex and you could both end it and work on the marriage. This is where the truth now happens. You disrupted her plans to be with OM and now she's pissed. And she is showing pure classic responses of someone in an exposed affair. Your counselor is either very inexperienced or bad if they aren't picking up on what's really been going on here, and it sounds like they aren't. BTW, I predict that if you hadn't agreed to the open stuff, she would still continue the affair and eventually have left you for him. She still might. It's clear she isn't currently committed to the marriage. She can't be with the OM and the affair is still very much still alive. The passwords etc. are her first pass at taking it underground. Do not reveal how you are getting any info, they will go further like prepaid cell phones etc. She's continuing to look for ways to end this current storm with you so she can pick her affair with OM back up to what she wanted it to be. She's checking out of your relationship and giving her love, attention and affection to him. She will continue this while she has any contact with him, and while she thinks she can get you to come around. You aren't fixing up communications here, you are dealing with an affair your wife is currently having. Meanwhile, the marriage therapist is talking about better communication. This guy needs to be made away. Perhaps you are telling him privately what is really going on here. The digs she does and the fights she tries to start are called gaslighting and it's classic cheater behavior. Never give in to it, each one is a complete setup to fight with you. You can't win a single one of these arguments by responding to them. You must ignore each one, and just turn and walk away when she tries to pull them. I highly recommend buying and putting a keylogger onto the computers in the house. If you can get the phone records from the cell company, get them. If you can get GPS data from her phone, then get it. You need to know what you're actually dealing with here. Clearly you won't be told the truth by her. She's in an affair and cheaters will not tell the truth. So that's a lot of stuff I just wrote. Here are some specifics I think you need to try. Tell her to choose your marriage or the OM. No other choices are possible. She has to end all contact with the OM, and she needs to tell the OM in a letter that she shows to you that he is not to contact her, and that she is choosing her family over him. After this, no friendships / no texts / nothing from him or to him. If OM contacts her in any way, she is to ignore it, and to tell you. Passwords go away on devices. The two of you will be 100% transparent to one another. She has to actually commit and work on the marriage, not just be there during the sessions. If she doesn't want to commit, then she should walk. If she can't or won't do the above things, then lawyer up and tell her to get out. Cut off any money / support you are providing to her that is enabling the affair to continue, e.a. Don't watch the kids so she can go out with him or the girls. You might be able to save this marriage by being tough with her. She apparently slowed down the affair when you fought back, so man up and really end the affair. She'll fight, she'll deny, she might even leave home for a while. It will be freaking hell for a bit, but you're already in hell with a marriage that will end because of the affair she is having. The difference is that you'll at least go down doing something to save it instead of sitting by and lettering her and the OM run things. I wish you and your family good luck bringing her back to the marriage. Please continue to post updates when you can. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please comment, like and subscribe. Cheers. Have a wonderful day or night. Wherever you are.